Reckon fire away. What's that first question? Don't
Bring
read
it,
that.
Coral.
First question is, should I build a house or should I buy a house?
Should I buy? Michael, I think it's pretty well understood by most folks at this point. Building is costing a lot of money right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention interest rates. You can only lock it in for a certain amount of time.
That's right.
It's going to take longer to build that house. Then that interest rate's going to be sticking in its spot, frozen for you.
It's going to take longer to build that house than the contractor tells you it's going to take, too.
That as well. So I think for most people, buying's probably the answer.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, if you're looking for that forever home and you're on the tail end of your career and you're trying to wind down, okay, fine, build the house. Chances are you are in a position to where you can pull it off with minimal hiccups. But most people, I think, probably right now, buying is the answer. What do you think?
I think it depends on which is more important to you, the value or the experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you're at the stage of your life where experience of this home is what matters the most and value is secondary, then build the house, right? You can only get exactly what you want if you build it. And even then, it's still hard to get exactly what you want because there's just too many variables when it comes to building a house. But if value is your number one concern and not experience, then and value would have to be a far number one and experience far second, then okay. But if it's value that's important to you, you gotta buy an existing house. Building is just really expensive right now.
Takes more cash on hand too.
It takes a lot more cash on hand. I would almost tell you that if you have enough money to pay for the build out of pocket, then build. If you have to finance it, probably better off just buying an existing house.
Mm-hmm. Carl, what else you got?
So how do I find a good realtor?
How do you find a good realtor?
If you're listening to this, you got a good start.
Yeah, this is a great start. If you are watching this video, how many realtors sit in chairs like this and talk about stuff? Not many. What do most people do? Probably you either know one already, and that doesn't mean they're good or bad, but most people already know one. Or if you're going on Google, realtor near me. So I guess the question of if you do a search like that, how do you decipher good from bad? I would say if you run across somebody, you see their headshot, you see their description, like, oh, that seems like somebody I might like to work with. Look at their listings.
Mm-hmm.
Is the photography good? Is it not good? Are they dark? Do you see somebody standing in a mirror when they take a mirror shot? The listing description, very important. Does it sound eloquent? Or are you getting yelled at because it's in all caps? This is just my opinion. You might disagree here, but I don't think that experience, like years doing it, is as important as a lot of other things.
I think experience matters, but the quality of the experience matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you've had your license for 20 years and you've sold 100 houses, that's different experience than if you've had your license for 7 years and sold 700 houses, right? The amount of experience matters, and it's not calculated in number of years you've been licensed, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's part of it. I think experience matters in the relation of, do you have experience selling this type of home? Right?
Sure.
Because you may be fully experienced in selling a new construction subdivision and may have no idea what it's like to sell a piece of raw land that's 80 acres, right? Those are two different buyers. Those are two different products. It's a different experience altogether. Mm-hmm. So just because you're experienced in one part of real estate doesn't mean you know how to sell it all, right?
And I think a good experiment to do, too, would be if you do happen to look up a list of them or something in the area, just call them. Did they answer the phone? Or did they have, like for instance, our team, a system in place where there's an operations team, somebody to answer the phone or reply to the text or the Facebook message at all times.
Mm-hmm. And a question to ask them when you call them in the process of interviewing them, how many homes did you sell last year? Mm-hmm. That's a great question, right?
Very good question.
Yeah.
How do I find the value of my home?
Well, you don't want to ask Zillow. That's not the move. Sometimes they get lucky, but how long ago was it? Maybe 6 months ago or so. They had a real bad time in the house valuing and buying space.
Yeah, Zillow lost, let's see, was it $1 billion? It was pretty close to $1 billion that they lost by using their Zestimate to purchase homes and then go try to sell them on the open market. And yeah, they lost. They lost enough money that they shut down that iBuyer program because it was so bad.
Yeah, shut it down real quick. So the move really is after you identify that agent, maybe it's us, maybe it's not. Yeah. But after you identify that agent, have them come out, take a look at the property. They'll run a comparative market analysis, a CMA, and find properties similar to yours and come up with a value that way. And hopefully they have enough experience to understand the little nuances that come with floor plan and finishes and that kind of thing. But yeah, an agent essentially is the answer. A good one, not some algorithm on Zillow or Realtor.com or wherever else.
I would add to that to say that a lot of folks think, how do I find my home's value? I'll call an appraiser and get an appraiser to come out and give me a price. Mm-hmm. Well, that is one way to get a valuation of your home, right? The thing that I think most people miss is that you can call 3 different appraisers, get them to all come out the same day, send them all back to do their research. They're going to come up with 3 different values.
Right.
It is an independent third-party analysis of what your home is worth based on comparable data that they've already looked at, right? Mm-hmm. When you get a broker price opinion or an agent price opinion, our job is to actually tell you what we think it will sell for today.
Right.
So that is based a little bit on what has happened in the past. It's also based on what's going on in the moment and what's happening in the future, because our jobs are to pay attention to that trend line and see not just where it's at today, where is it going. So we'll tell you about the active comps. We'll tell you about the comps that are pending right now. We'll tell you about the comps that just sold. So we take all 3 of those and say, okay, based on where the trend is going, we think it will sell for this. So it's different than an appraisal. We didn't appraise your house. We told you what we think we can get for the value, right?
Yeah, not necessarily that the appraiser is wrong, because he's looking at the same data that we would. But yeah, like you said, we think more in terms of what's going on right now, where things going, and that often creates a situation where it feels like the appraiser is just more conservative. And maybe they're, I'm sure if an appraiser is wrong enough times, he gets more than a wrist slap on that. So
I remember back in 2009, I bought a house that had sold in 2006 for $152. So looking backwards, that house was a $150,000 house. I bought it in, I think it was 2009 or 10, but I bought it at 85. And at the time, got an appraisal for 85, and it was great. And then literally a year later, got another appraisal at 65 because the values were going down. So over time, the number changes, and it can change fairly rapidly. And it all depends on where the market is at the moment. So time matters.
Carl, sir, what else do you have?
Should I buy a fixer-upper or move-in ready?
In my experience, very common question, because everybody kind of wants that make it my own. I think the problem a lot of people run into is just the fact that a fixer-upper usually means you better have some cash on you, for the fact that most fixer-uppers are not going to go FHA, VA, USDA, because of the shape that they're in. So it's not right for a lot of people, I don't think. You're probably better off with the move-in ready if you're kind of in that first-timer crowd, or maybe your second house. But I mean, if you are getting your second house, maybe you got some equity built up, especially now. So you might be able to go conventional, have enough cash on hand to go that route, secure the house, and have enough money to invest in it. But again, because those houses are a little more difficult to buy, often they're cash deals. Probably not the move for a lot of people. What do you think?
I think this is a good time for a commercial break for the Hannah Rogers and the Rogers Lending team to come on and tell us about the renovation loan that they have.
Brilliant. Carl, roll that. I'm not going to say it, but you know what I would say. Roll that footage.
That's funny. So I think, again, a fixer-upper probably needs a definition. Is a fixer-upper to some people is, we should put new flooring in and we should paint it a different color.
Yeah.
In my opinion, what I'm used to seeing as a fixer-upper is something that has wavy floors and needs a floor joist or needs a roof or needs some sort of structure help.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of fixer-uppers that investors like me look for. So I can tell you that there are a lot of people that want to buy a fixer-upper, and then as we walk through them, they quickly become the move-in ready buyer.
Yeah.
It is a daunting task to go past just flooring and paint. Like when you get past those 2 things, maybe you throw in some countertops, that's still pretty easy, but you get past that and it starts to get complicated. And so there's the question of permitting and that kind of thing if you're going to change the structure at all. So the fixer-upper idea is a good one, but the guys on HGTV make it look a lot easier than it actually is.
Right. And something that we've talked about a lot on here is I think a lot of people don't realize just how hard it is to get the work done, getting the people to show up, stick to the budget. So it's a whole different job. And I don't think a lot of people realize that.
And I think you said the right word. It's a job. Like it's, if you have a full-time job, imagine having to meet 6 different contractors out there. So there's 6 2.5-hour windows that you're going to be gone from whatever it is that you actually do for a living to go meet the contractor. And inevitably the contractor's 30 minutes early, or he's 30 minutes late, or he gets there and he doesn't have all the things he needs. And every time, I mean, it feels like we run into that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And then maybe the contractor shows up, is on time, is very professional, takes good notes, goes back to the office, and he's like, how long was that beam that needed to go across the garage? I got to go back out there. So then they call you again. Hey, I got to go back out and measure.
Yeah.
You miss another hour of work. So there's more to it than meets the eye. And even for us, like somebody who's done it dozens of times, inevitably there are things I miss. I've done it a ton, and I will go to Lowe's and be like, okay, this is what I need to get. I get back to the job site, and I'm like, my goodness, I forgot this one thing. Got to go back to Lowe's again. So it is frustrating to go from fixer-upper to move-in ready. And we see all the time the number of showings. If you're selling a house and you're like, I'm just going to let the next person fix that. Man, we see all the time the number of move-in ready buyers that are out there far exceeds the number of people who are willing to buy a fixer-upper.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's a few that want to go see the fixer-upper, but even the few that want to go see it end up
changing their mind.
Saying, I just did the math on one of our houses right now that is a fixer-upper, had 18 showings. All 18 people said, yeah, that's more repair than I want to do. And so at least a few of those I know for a fact have bought move-in ready houses because they're like, just more than I wanted to do.
Yeah. All right, so we just ran through a few common questions that we get all the time, as well as some common Google searches. So if you have questions of your own, leave them in the comments, or if you've got questions about buying or selling real estate, hit us up. We'll be happy to help. Ugh.
The great thing about soccer in the 90s is that none of the referees actually knew how to call a soccer game. So, like, they let you get away with murder because they're football referees. And so, like, they don't understand the skill and the finesse of soccer. And I understand it now, but at the time I was a football player that was playing soccer. So, like, I'd go out there and just run over people and they didn't call anything because they're football. They're like, oh, you didn't hurt the guy, get up, you know? Yeah,